flooding is the biggest danger right now, with many areas underwater in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas,
where floodwaters trapped people in their cars and homes.
Voluntary evacuations in Seneca. The Lost Creek, in Seneca began to rise rapidly this morning.
Adults plus children and pets were evacuated in the 3-hour time period that we were there. And that was just within a half-mile radius.
The creek went from 6 feet to 36 feet in 24 hours.
The roads are washed out, which is now threatening the water supply. The flood has washed mud into the system, and crews are working overtime to try and clean all of it out.
A very high probability of flash flooding occurring. It's the weekend, and
a new round of storms could sweep in tomorrow.
In May 2019, northeast Oklahoma bore witness to some of the most severe flooding in recent memory. Nestled at the confluence of the Spring and Neosho rivers, the Wyandotte Nation, a small tribal community, took the brunt of the impacts from these floods. Roads, businesses, schools, homes, and community assets were completely destroyed. And with each new threat of flooding, Wyandotte heritage faces the danger of irreplaceable losses. The Wyandotte are not alone in their plight. Upstream in Seneca, Missouri, a town of about 2,000 residents, wrestles with the same destructive waters, and although these communities have good neighbors, the challenges they face are compounded by invisible barriers. Communication breakdowns, environmental hazards, historical trauma, and political jurisdictions often leave them vulnerable when disaster strikes. As floods continue to wreak havoc, the call for effective emergency response systems has never been more urgent. The scars left by these disasters run deep, revealing not just physical damage, but also social fractures and political rifts that hinder recovery efforts. What follows is not just a story of flooding, but rather a narrative on how to build community trust in an area that has long felt neglected and exploited by the government. Understanding the impacts of flooding on the Wyandotte Nation community and the intricate relationships that shape their response will aid in ensuring that the final mile of forecasting products are thoughtfully employed successfully in these areas. Unlike conventional flood risk management approaches, this initiative takes an Indigenous perspective. Led by University of Alabama, Mike Fedoroff, and applied anthropologists, the team's interdisciplinary approach seeks to co-develop solutions with tribal leaders, integrating community knowledge into the decision-making process. This is a significant shift for CIROH projects, which have not routinely taken this approach to developing NOAA products. The team, which includes experts in political science, serious gaming, ecology, geography, policy, and law, is not only working to understand how tribal communities perceive and respond to flood risk management, but also to enhance existing NOAA products to better serve the needs of these communities. Our specific objectives are to conduct tribal needs assessments, analyze gaps in data access and coverage, understand the complex decision-making tree in this shared service environment, and create dynamic visualizations specifically tailored to the needs of tribal decision-makers. This project establishes a scalable framework that can be applied to working with Indigenous communities across the country, enhancing their resilience to water-related hazards while also empowering tribal leaders with more relevant, actionable water intelligence. Of course, none of these project objectives can ultimately be achieved without full partnership with tribal communities. Tribal leaders ensure that the project doesn't just remain theoretical, but delivers tangible operational benefits to the communities who need them most. Over the past 9 months, our team has worked closely with the National Tribal GIS Support Center to outreach and partner with the Wyandotte Nation and the City of Wyandotte. Rather than a simple letter of support, these groups were given full partnership and decision-making authority to help plan our study. Wyandotte leaders like Chief Norman Hildebrand, the second chief of the Wyandotte Nation, Leon Crow, the emergency manager of the Wyandotte Nation, and Kristin Lee, the director of planning and natural resources for the tribe, are critical investigators which help align the project's objectives with the on-the-ground needs and expertise of the tribal community. To start the project, our team traveled to Wyandotte Nation in Ottawa County, Oklahoma for a listening session with tribal leaders to plan and co-develop project activities. We learned that with over 30,000 residents and 9 federally recognized tribes, Ottawa County navigates many complexities of interagency coordination between multiple governments. In just 3 years, the county's faced a staggering 23 floods, with each one bringing unique challenges to emergency responders in the region. Now, tribes are not passive victims in this story. A good example of their tenacity is the role of the Quapaw tribe's fire and EMS services, whose emergency management teams provide critical support to the entire Northeast region. This is made possible through an invisible web of relationships or mutual aid agreements, which allow them to respond to not only tribal members, but to non-tribal residents as well. This intricate system ensures that when disaster strikes, help arrives, but it also reveals the challenges of coordinating across multiple jurisdictions, especially in an area with so many tribal and state boundaries. To complicate matters, we learned that the Wyandotte, alongside other tribes in the area, live in a landscape scarred by an industrial legacy of environmental injustice. In our fieldwork, what looked like mountains loomed over the landscape. However, we soon came to understand that these were actually remnants of the area's mining history, called chat piles. Casting long shadows over abandoned and evacuated tribal communities, these piles are a constant reminder of environmental degradation. More troubling are the fact that they pose a severe threat of contamination when heavy rains flood the region. As these toxic pollutants wash downstream, the floodwaters become a chemical bath on the landscape. The Wyandotte Nation is particularly vulnerable, as their lands sit directly within this toxic flood zone. For the 400 bison they care for, each flood carries the danger of contaminated water seeping into the grazing grounds and poisoning the environment. There are over 100 of these chat piles across Ottawa County, amounting to 75 million tons of toxic waste. The floodwaters laden with hazardous materials endanger not only the animals, but also the tribal communities in this region of Oklahoma, who depend on the land for sustenance and cultural practices. What should be a natural cycle of flooding and renewal becomes an unnatural cycle of destruction and loss. The complexity of managing floods in Ottawa County is not just about the water. It's compounded by a web of social, political, and jurisdictional boundaries. Ottawa County holds the densest concentration of sovereign tribal nations anywhere in the United States, with 9 federally recognized tribes, each with their own government, cultural practices, and histories. This patchwork of sovereignty means that while these tribes share a landscape, their response to natural disasters is often different, separated by layers of political jurisdiction and historical divides. Taking a look at the map of Ottawa County, you can see these borders do not often align with the flood zones. The Spring and Neosho rivers, as well as their tributaries, spread across different tribal lands, disregarding official lines drawn on a map. These rivers also flow across state borders, further complicating efforts to manage and mitigate flood impacts between the multiple governments. Simply put, when a flood hits, it doesn't just overwhelm one government, it overwhelms the response system of many governments in a small area. Tribal emergency services must navigate not only their own resources, but also work with neighboring tribes, state agencies, and federal programs to deliver flood response. Communication between these zones can be challenging, and the jurisdictional complexities can lead to delays in rescue efforts, miscommunication, and even political tensions. Another significant concern is the overlapping of toxic waste zones and floodplains. Much of the population in Ottawa County live in Miami, the county seat. This is directly downstream from Tar Creek Superfund site, which gets flooded and washes toxic mining waste downstream, which has direct impact on the health of residents. This also has negative impacts on emergency response planning and staging areas long after the floodwaters recede. Our project activities emphasize the importance of collaboration, ensuring that diverse perspectives and expertise come together to create effective solutions. Tribal engagement is central to our study, including on-site engagement with tribes. Our team has engaged in field visits that provided invaluable insights into the challenges faced by the Wyandotte Nation and other tribal communities in this region. These visits have been crucial for building trust and understanding the local needs. Partnerships are another key area. We have established partnerships with key stakeholders, including the Wyandotte Nation and the City of Wyandotte. This collaborative approach fosters an environment of shared learning and collective problem solving. The inclusion of the National Tribal GIS Center has also been key to building relationships in this region. And finally, science communications. We have co-developed Esri story maps with Wyandotte Nation to effectively communicate their story, scope their perspective on flood risk, and engage the community directly. These visual narratives showcase the impact of flooding and underscore the importance of a coordinated response in this region. These platforms can also be utilized to promote NOAA forecasting products to the tribal decision makers. We are scheduling interviews with emergency managers in Ottawa County to gather insights into current response strategies and identify areas for improvement. These conversations will be essential for understanding the complexities of flood management across multiple jurisdictions. We also plan on organizing a tabletop exercise hosted with Wyandotte Nation that incorporates serious games to simulate flood scenarios, promoting collaborative problem solving among participants. The NOAA National Weather Service has agreed to provide some past scenario data for this event, and this interactive approach will refine emergency response strategies and strengthen community resilience. In summary, this CIROH project is novel and unique in operationalizing research with Indigenous communities of Northeast Oklahoma. As we work with the tribe to amplify their story of resilience, we, as a CIROH research community, can provide NOAA a framework to engage in meaningful ways with tribal people. Understanding what drives Indigenous perceptions, tribal decision-making structures, and political economy in a multicultural context is what gets our forecast to the final mile. With this in mind, our team thanks NOAA for funding this important work. If we want people to listen, we must also listen. We also wish to thank the Wyandotte Nation, as this project is not possible without their support, insight, and patience. Wyandotte spent a year with our team cultivating this relationship, and their openness, guidance, and collaboration have been instrumental in helping us navigate the complexities of flood management and community resilience in Northeast Oklahoma. We hope to continue growing this partnership and look forward to future projects where we can work together to support and strengthen the Wyandotte Nation and other communities facing similar challenges. I look forward to briefing you guys next year on where we're at with this project, and thank you for your time.